All right, Virgo, thanks for tuning in to your yearly horoscope for 2015. My name is Athan. Okay, so I'm going to start very general with the eclipses happening this year because the lunar cycles always do a very good job of showing us the overall energies and where we can really utilize the flow. Just like with the moon cycles, it's like when we go with the flow, then things work out. That's where the opportunities are, and it's like this nice symphony. So focusing on these areas that I'm going to mention now in terms of the eclipses will be the overall backdrop, and then I'm going to get more specific with the transiting planets and how they're aspecting each other in the sky. All right, so starting with the eclipses, we had the solar eclipse back last year in October 2014. That was in Libra, which was your guys' second house. So something culminated there in terms of perhaps some new value, some new idea of resources, of wealth, your own sense of self-worth, something of that nature, maybe a project, something around the home, relationships, or just an overall new perspective of that set you off into a new direction. And that new direction is what's going to be the focus, hopefully, for you for the first few months of the year up until March when we have the next set of eclipses. So for these first three months, really focus on that. See how you can increase your sense of abundance, your sense of self-worth, and learn through experience in terms of what your values are and that sort of thing. Or anything that you did start relating finances or resources, continue with that, continue growing with that through the first few months of this year. Then in the springtime, March, April time, we have the next set of eclipses which are happening in Pisces, which is your guys' 7th house. And that has to do with relationships. So perhaps whatever this is, this new perspective or what have you since October, is now going to culminate, and it's going to bring something about in terms of perhaps a new relationship, developing existing relationships, a new perspective on relationships in general. But this is where things really culminate for you in that area. So whatever that was, you're going to notice that's where the fruits are going to be, where the plants, so to speak, are going to be bearing fruits for you in terms of that. And then there's also going to be a new beginning for you from that 7th house. And that 7th house could be, you know, the new relationship. It could also be anything that's involving legal matters, service work, exchanges, and, you know, service in terms of maybe what you do for a living or sales, even when it's in that service sector. But anything that has to do with you coming one-on-one with someone else and balance, having balance and harmony in your life. So that 7th house, whatever that is, whatever that new thing, new perspective in terms of relationships is, focus on that from the springtime all the way through the fall time period when we have the next set of eclipses in September. So for the middle part of the year, focus on relationships, focus on developing them. Okay, and then naturally you're going to notice the culmination and the flow in your life. And the culmination you'll see in regards to that in that September time period is going to be in regards to your first house, which has to do with you. This is the classic example of when you're focused on others or focused on cultivating your relationships. Then there's this also, you start to become more aware of who you are. Learning who you are through relationships, mirrored back to you, you might say, but overall just an emphasis on you, which is great because it's going to be the time to do that. And also balancing those two things as well. But whatever it is, I think it's going to be a new you, essentially, culminating around the fall time period that came from a lot of these new experiences that you were moving towards since the spring time period. And then that's going to set you off into a new direction as well. And that new direction is a spiritual direction. The solar eclipse is happening in your 12th house, which is a new spiritual direction, and you seeing the importance of peace and presence in your life. And it could also be if it is a project, something that does involve behind-the-scenes activities or psychology or dream space or something of that nature. But overall, I think it's just a spiritual new beginning. And that new beginning is going to lead you into 2016. So from fall onward, really focus on developing presence, peace, compassion, harmony, spirituality in general in your life. And you'll notice that'll lead you strongly into 2016 in terms of focus. Now the overall focus is on yourself this year, and it's going to continue to be the case because, last year this was the case towards the end of it, and now this whole year it's going to be the case. The reason why I say this is because your North Node is in your guys' first house. All right, is in Virgo for the whole year. So focusing on developing yourself, focusing on your goals, your ambitions this year. How can you achieve your ambitions? How can you take those steps? How can you face your fears? Do some things involving your, that may involve your courage. And focus on those things while balancing relationships, of course. But this is the time to really cultivate yourself, see your opportunities in life, and make something of it, focusing on that, focusing on developing who you are. Very nice, actually, having that North Node in the first house. And so that's going to be the overall theme. Now let's look into the more specifics in terms of these transiting planets, where they're located, and how they're going to aspect each other. Now starting with Jupiter, Jupiter is going to enter into Leo in July of 2015. So for the first half of the year, the emphasis is going to continue to be on your 11th house, which is about the collective issues. It's about your freedom. It's being of service without expecting anything in return. Think Aquarius. It's the water bearer, giving water, that sort of thing. Orienting towards that, you're going to notice there's a lot of opportunities in your life, lots of abundance coming to you in all forms when you're taking on that humanitarian or that more service-oriented perspective, and that could be in relation to your work, with your relationships, or what have you. So continue that through until July, and you're going to notice that's where the opportunities are coming to you. Perhaps it's getting involved in the community, perhaps getting involved in the world, doing humanitarian things of that nature, or getting involved with your friends. It's another aspect of this. And tapping into your ideals and seeing the infinite possibilities with your ideals as well. But in either case, in that summer time period, things really start to shift, and it's the shifting of the eclipses also. When you have that new spiritual beginning that I talked about, and leading up to that, Jupiter goes into that 12th house. So Jupiter in the 12th from mid-year onward and into 2016 for a year from that summer time period, you're going to notice opportunities for you to expand spiritually, to bring more presence into your life, more harmony, more peace, and developing intuition. All of these things that are behind the scenes, the psyche, the spiritual side of things. That's where the opportunities are going to really be for you. And noticing too how you can really gain a lot through resting and relaxation, and how you can get a lot done essentially by going with the flow, and having that peace and presence. So very, very exciting there, and there can be some beautiful things coming your way in terms of the spiritual side of things from that July onward time period. So pay attention to that, but see the opportunities, but make something of it. If you do get an invitation, for example, to do something spiritual, and maybe that'll be very good for you to actually take up that opportunity and make it a reality, just as an example. Now the reality side of all this is Saturn, and Saturn is recently went into your 3rd house, which is about communications and thoughts and learning and teaching and that sort of thing. And with Saturn there, he's going to be there for the whole year of 2015 and all of 2016 as well. So for the next couple of years, focus on how you can really cultivate your communications, cultivate learning and teaching. Perhaps, this is the time when a lot of you will be getting serious with that. Maybe it's time to write that book that you've wanted to write. Maybe it's time to, say the things you've wanted to say, to express yourself, to take the course that you wanted to take, or learn the study that you wanted to study. All these kinds of things, Saturn there. But overall, it's going to be really having a good mastery over how your thoughts create your reality. The 3rd house at the bottom of the chart is a manifestation house, and it has to do with what you think is created into reality. And so focusing on that, focusing on the power of your thought, focusing on the power of your of the word and the intention and that sort of thing, and creating and manifesting through intention. That's really the emphasis there for you guys. So very powerful, very strong. Utilize that energy. It's awesome. Now Neptune and Chiron, let's start with Uranus. We don't want to skip Uranus. Uranus has been transiting your guys' 7th house, okay? And this is where a lot of this relationship stuff is taking place that I was talking about in terms of the eclipses. Okay, but this has been an ongoing theme, and it's been about you guys having more freedom in your relationships and seeing the importance of that. That, you know, in order to have healthy relationships, both individuals have to be free. And there has to be that sense of autonomy and individuality within the relationship itself. And when we do have that, then it cultivates the relationship and it's able to grow. So continuing with that, freedom in relationships is going to be very important. Also releasing any attachments to that relating to relationships, and surrendering also to the whole process is very important as well with that activity of the South Node in that 7th house. Now in terms of that Neptune and Chiron, they're continuing the very long transits of your 6th house, which has to do with work, routine, and health. So continuing to go with the flow with those things is going to be very important, spiritualizing through it. I think you'll notice that the more you take care of your health and your routine, the more peace and tranquility and spirituality in general that there is in your life. And also seeing the spiritual side of the day-to-day activities, the spiritual side to the mundane, you know, and it's, you know, just the physical world, everything you see is spiritual. And you guys are definitely seeing that. So continue to see that, continue to improve your health, improve yourself, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Through that, you're going to develop a stronger sense of presence and flow, which is a big emphasis for you guys, especially mid-year onward, like I talked about with that 12th house. Now, Chiron's also there, so that has to do with a healing process with that as well. Continuing any healing involving those 6th house matters. And you'll find that there's a lot of opportunities this year for you guys to continue to heal old wounds, maybe related to your crafts, which you're able to create, is also 6th house. But in general, maybe it's healing your body. Maybe it's time to do some of that healing, you know. And it's been the case, so continue to do that, and I think you'll find that very enjoyable, because all these planets, all these aspects, they're just there to assist us, and it's really just aspects of ourselves which we are ready to, you know, do those things in that particular way, and that overall enlivens us and helps our overall being. Now, Pluto has been transiting your guys' 4th house, which rules home and family, also your emotional states and roots. And what's interesting is now we've talked about the manifestation house in terms of communication, but now there's also the other manifestation house, which is emotion and feeling. And having Pluto in that 4th house is about seeing how when you have a clear and internal emotional state without attachment, very powerful manifestation abilities. Because whenever things are nice and you know, your spiritual core doesn't have all this gunk and emotional conditioning on it, your emotional state is clean and clear, then you're able to manifest. And then there's a tremendous amount of power in that as well. And that's the power of manifestation through feeling. How you feel is reflected in your reality as well. So overall, this is, you know, Pluto in the 4th is also just releasing any attachments to the past, to family, to old emotional conditioned feelings. And the more you do that, the more you're going to notice it's spiritualizing you, it's freeing you. So just continue to be willing to do that. It's been a very slow, ongoing thing, and it's very powerful. Lots of spiritual, emotional power that can come from doing this transmutation of the old, you know, conditioned feelings that we all have. Okay, so now let's talk about the specifics in terms of the the slow-moving planets and where they're related to each other during the year. Starting in January. January is a very important month. You know, we have this ongoing square between Pluto and Uranus. You know, all this emotional change that I'm talking about, transmutation, is balanced, and it's coming in contact with relationships. And it's this freedom in relationships. So there's this continuous square that's been going on for the past 2 to 3 years, and it's now coming to a final culmination up in March. Okay, so the first 3 months of this year are very important in terms of continuing to do those emotional changes while at the same time creating freedom in your relationships. And you'll notice when you do those two things and you balance those two things, then it's going to create that, that power and that sense of freedom as well. So an example of that might be, you know, when you are emotionally open and emotionally trustworthy in your relationships, it's cultivating them. You'll notice when you have freedom in your relationships, it's enabling you to have that freedom of emotion as well in the internal state. So you can see, you can play with this all day long, you can see all the different aspects of it, but at the end of the day, it's just about balancing those two, okay, and coming to constructive change, being the willing participant to make changes in those areas of your life, with home, family, and also relationships, your emotional state as well. And when you do that, you step into that power, you're willing to make those changes, you'll know what those changes are for you individually. And the first few months of this year are really the time to do that. So step into that power, make those changes, and you'll see your overall life improving when you do. Now January is a very important month for that because he's squaring up to the North Node. So putting in that constructive energy, perhaps in this new direction with your path, this new North Node stuff you guys have been working on since October, in terms of really cultivating yourselves and focusing on yourself more, and through releasing all these attachments, you're going to notice that it's assisting that. It's assisting the more of a self-discovery and all these goals and everything that you're going to be working on this year. It's very powerful there in January, but it's going to take a little, it takes initiative. It takes some work to do that. Now Uranus is going to be conjuncting the South Node, so releasing any old notions of relationships and how you think they might need to be, etc. Releasing any relationships that are no longer serving you as well. It's a part of that as well, but you're going to notice there's a tremendous amount of freedom that can come from that. So just really ask yourself how you can bring more freedom into your relationship, because every relationship requires freedom, and do what needs to be done and let go of what needs to be let go of. If it's not necessarily just the relationship, but it could be aspects of the relationships or notions of the relationship. Whatever that is, you'll notice that releasing is going to create more freedom for you. So January is very important for that. Now let's shift to March. March, like I said, is the end of this square with Uranus and Pluto. But we also have the eclipses, which makes this month very important. And we have this ongoing transit involving Jupiter and Uranus, which has been happening since September of 2014. And it's going to continue until June of 2015. So for the first half of this year, we're going to continue with this Jupiter trining up to Uranus. And March is a very important month for it. And it basically has to do with all of this freedom. It's going to be assisting you guys in a lot of this expansion that's been going on in relation to your overall freedom, like I talked about. But with Jupiter in the 11th, it's the expansion of the giving and being of service. And you'll notice that there's a tremendous amount of freedom that you can have, that you've been seeing since September, in terms of how when you're being more of service, or if you're connecting to your work. Another way of looking at it is when you're connecting to your work underneath the surface and how you're emotionally connected to it, which is the service side of it, you can see it's related, then there's a tremendous amount of freedom and satisfaction that comes from that. And when you'll notice too that there's optimism and there's fun and there's a liveliness that Jupiter is sort of injecting into that 7th house as well. So really from the first half of this year, it's about how you can be more free with your friends, with your groups, with these humanitarian things, how there's more freedom that's involved with that, and also how you can be more optimistic, bring more positivity into your current relationships, and then you're going to see a lot of opportunities there. You can see a lot of opportunities with friends and relationships, with service work, all that sort of stuff. It's a very nice, harmonious aspect between Jupiter and Uranus. Okay, and like I said, that's going to be going on through June. Now let's go ahead and shift to August. August is the next set of aspects. We have Jupiter squaring up to Saturn. And this is taking these possibilities, which are now in the spiritual sector. Jupiter will be in your 12th house at this time. And this is taking a lot of the spiritual abundance and opportunities that you'll have and making something of it. August is the month where you're going to really want to solidify it, maybe make some changes there. Not changes, but do the thing that needs to be done to facilitate that. And it's a very positive aspect. Anything involving Jupiter is very nice. And it's just taking these opportunities and making something of it. And I think it might have something to do with that 3rd house. Maybe it's an opportunity to learn, to teach, to communicate more, or just something in particular. Maybe, it could be that you decide to teach a spiritual yoga class or something of, that nature, where it's involving teaching with spirituality. You see those two things coming together. That's August. Now in September, it's another very powerful month because we have the eclipses, and then we have 2 more aspects taking place. Jupiter is going to be opposite Neptune, and Saturn is going to be sextiling up to the North Node. So in terms of Jupiter and Neptune, there's a balancing that needs to take place here. All of this change that's happening in the spiritual side of your chart is needing to be balanced with the day-to-day, needing to be balanced with your health. So it's very important from September through November, really, and for the second half of the year, really, to focus your spirituality with the day-to-days. Focus your spirituality with your health and seeing how they're actually one and the same thing. You can't have spirituality unless you're taking care of your physical existence and your physical health, and vice versa. So balancing those two, you're going to notice more opportunities coming to you. That's very nice. It can be very spiritualizing as well. Saturn sextiling up to the North Node in September is a month where you can really put a lot of energy and hard work into yourself and your goals and your ambitions with that North Node in the first. So pay attention to that and use September as that constructive month to do those things, to ground it, to make it a reality. Very nice, very, very good. And being clear about your intentions, what you're manifesting, what you're doing, will facilitate that even more. Now October, we have Jupiter trining up to Pluto. Again, positive energy from Jupiter in that 12th house to, in this case, Pluto. So a lot of the spiritual energy might be actually facilitating the home and family sector for you guys, and helping a lot of the changes there, and also facilitating your emotional state. I think there's a strong connection here around that October where a lot of the spiritual abundance that's coming to you is really going to assist you in these internal transformations and perhaps changes that are happening with the home and family sector as well. Now the last set of aspects are in November, and we have Jupiter opposite Chiron, which again is balancing the spirituality with the day-to-day and finding that healing. Perhaps in this sense it's healing your health, and this is physical, spiritual, and emotional health. Healing that will facilitate your spiritual process and vice versa. So nice balance there in November. And then the last aspect of the year is we have Saturn squaring up to Neptune in November, which is grounding the spirituality. And this is going to be the emphasis there, which is taking all the spiritual abundance, taking all these opportunities there, and again making something of it, making it into a hard reality. And perhaps even taking this thinking and communicating and spiritualizing that, seeing how you can communicate perhaps much more subtlety, with more subtlety and more of a spiritual undertone. So if you're not teaching something directly spiritually related, it's just that the undertone of it, what's really being conveyed, is actually assisting people in having peace and presence in their lives. All right, guys, so I'm going to draw a card and see where Spirit would like a little more emphasis for this year. Okay, Scorpio. Well, that's, that might be a reminder to just, step into that spiritual power. Now, there's nothing in particular happening in Scorpio as far as the slow-moving planets, but I think this is just a reminder to step into that spiritual power. And notice how Scorpio's hair is red, and she's donned in the color red. It's about being in tune with our instinctual side, with our root chakra. And when we're in tune with our root chakra, and this is all about the balance, balancing the material with the physical as well. When we're tuned into our instinctual human nature, that's when we have the ultimate power of spirituality. It's one thing to just be up in the upper chakras, and yeah, you can see and experience a lot in that realm, but when you merge the spiritual with the physical, then you're grounding that spirituality and making it here in physicality, which is what this whole experience is. We're living in third dimension, and this is the place to ground spirituality, embody it, which comes from embracing both the spiritual and the human side of ourself. And that's really what Scorpio shows us, is how when we embrace our instinctual selves, we gain a tremendous amount of spirituality. All right, guys, well, I hope you have a great 2015. Please get in touch if you would like a personal reading. I do both MP3 recorded sessions and live sessions. You can click the link on the following page for that. And if you have any questions, please get in touch. Hope you guys have a great year. Thanks for watching.